Hey, Derek Smith, the fire starter here. So I wanted to share a story with you, and I wanted to share some of the awarenesses and just what I'm working on now, and see, how this can be helpful for you. So in life, you might be going through a lot of things right now. You might be really struggling. You might be struggling with your eating. You might be struggling with your health. You might be having issues going on in relationships or with money. I mean, those are really the three main categories we can look at in life. We can break them down into smaller subcategories, but when those three things are working well in our lives, things are pretty good. So if you're struggling in any of these three things, I know I've been there. I can relate, and in some areas I'm still dealing with stuff. We're not ever straight. As a saying, straight and not straight. So we're always working on it. We're a work in progress. We're ever evolving and we're ever expanding. So once we reach a certain level, you don't just stay there. It's not just you reach this balance point and then you're balanced for life. It's like you have to continually be aware of it and continually modify and adjust and adapt your behavior to maintain and to grow into a greater potential for that area. So whether it's your health, your relationships, or your wealth, your finances, I know what it feels like to try a lot of different things. I know what it feels like to go on diets and then to go back off the diet and to go on the diet again and back off, to put on weight, to lose weight. I haven't always been super fit. I've dealt with different um, substance use things that cause me to really deteriorate my health. In the moment, though, those things all looked like useful coping mechanisms for me. They looked like the solution. They looked like the thing that would work for me in that moment. And really, that's the underlying thing, is like, why do we do what we do? Is, well, it's because it's fulfilling a need. It's fulfilling a deep need within me that if I'm not conscious to, I will fulfill that need in ways that are not healthy, in ways that are destructive. Knowing better isn't always the solution. Knowing better helps. The more information you have, the more understanding you have, the more awareness you have. Like, that is the beginning point of all transformation. All real transformation is behavior change. Learning is the same stimulus and having a new response. So having the head knowledge of knowing better is the first step. And then once you know better, then it's doing better. It's doing not better necessarily, even, because better is a judgment. So it's doing what's useful in the moment, because what's useful in one moment may not be useful in another moment. So I say all that to say, that if you really look at why these things don't typically work for us, if we tried weight loss, if we've tried, giving up addiction, whether it's scrolling, whether it's porn, whether it's drugs, whether it's food, whatever the compulsive behavior is, because that's what it eventually becomes. It becomes an unconscious compulsive behavior where it's like, you're going to do it and you really can't stop yourself from doing it. You feel like it's a hopeless situation. You feel like you don't have control over the behavior. You feel like you're just being compelled to do it without a conscious awareness. So if you're in these states of like compulsion, the first step is to really just become aware of it, that it's happening. And with this awareness, you can find a level of acceptance in that. And that doesn't mean, like, acceptance isn't passive. Acceptance is a very present, open, spacious awareness of not resisting what is. It's just a way of evaluating what is objectively so that you can be more intentional and conscious with your next decision. And it's always in the moment. So I'm in the moment for a moment here, present with you now, speaking this stuff, just riffing on it. I don't have a script. I'm not here to lecture you or to share something that isn't something that I apply. My work is to just be transparent, like the word intimacy, into me, you see. I just want to be transparent with you, and hopefully some of my experience is useful for you in your life. And these are things that I've worked on. I've heard cliche sayings. I've been around the recovery rooms. I've done yoga teacher training. I've done deep work on myself with therapists, with psychiatrists. I've done, and that wasn't even really the deep work. That was more just talk therapy, which is shallow kind of to me. But like, there are some other people I've worked with that went a little bit deeper. Anyways, I digress. I've done work. I've done, the physical aspect on myself. I've worked myself out into, breaking down the body. And then I've done other things. So I've just done a lot of things to really get down to, like, what works and what's useful and what may not be useful now but might be useful later. So just because a tool doesn't work now doesn't mean it can't be useful later. So we don't want to throw out the baby with the bathwater, right? We want to keep the things that are useful, use the things that are useful now, and store the things that might be useful later or are useful at a different time for later use. So there isn't a right and a wrong way. There's things that are useful and things that are expansive, and then there's things that are contractive and more destructive. And sometimes, it's useful to have destructive moments. Sometimes the breakdown happens, like they say, before the breakthrough. So, but it's the resistance to what is that causes our suffering. So we experience discomfort, we experience pain, we experience life. We have this experience of life, and then secondarily to that experience, there's a narrative, a meaning, an association that's automatically ascribed to whatever just happened based on past experience usually. And that's where we create our struggle. That's where we create the stories about why the things are the way they are and how we are going to perpetuate the things in the future the same way we have in the past, just going forward in the future. So I just wanted to share a few insights. So just being aware of what's going on, being aware of being able to sit in this pocket of this moment and being aware of this compulsion within me. Like if I have a tendency to go on these diets and come off, if I have a tendency to be, I don't like the word addicted, but if I have the word to be compulsive with these behavior patterns, like that I can see it's pulling me more than I'm pulling it. It's dragging me along. Just becoming aware of it and then accepting it. Give yourself the grace and the space to be a human and to it's okay that we have these issues. It's okay that these things are there, and we get to choose different. So being aware of it is the first place, and then learning to just accept it as it is, and then taking a new action, making a new decision, making a more expansive decision, making a decision that's in more congruence with who you want to be. And decision implies action. So we want to come from a place of inspiration, intuition, and imagination in our actions. So that what else could I do here? How else could I perceive this? What other meaning could I ascribe to this? How is this for me? How can I move forward with this in a constructive way? How can I get this need met, this feeling of uncompleteness, this feeling of unwholeness, like there's a hole inside of me? How can I get that fulfillment in a more constructive, connected, collaborative way? Because there's multiple ways to skin the cat. There's multiple ways to get at that. And so just being able to look at it and seeing that it's awareness, acceptance, and then action, inspired action, is a useful tool. It's a useful way of perceiving the world. It's a useful way of, healing the wounds that are inside of us. Just seeing it for what it is. That this is it was a solution for a long time, and it was solving some emotional need, or it was solving some spiritual need I had deep inside for a sense of contribution or connection. It made me feel connected, or it gave me a sense of certainty. Like I feel uncertain right now. The world's going to crap, or whatever, whatever story we have about it. The world's not going anywhere, right? The world is what it is. But we have the story about what it is, and then it's I feel uncertain. What that brings up is a feeling of uncertainty, the unknown. Be like, oh my gosh, impending doom. And so what I know will bring me a sense of certainty, a sense of comfort, is eating 3,000 calories in one sitting, or doing drugs, or gambling, or sex, or porn, or scrolling. Any of those things, you can list out. It's a myriad of behaviors, but the point is that the behavior becomes compulsory. It becomes automatic to where we don't really think about why we're doing what we're doing. We're just doing it because I know it'll make me feel better in the moment. So when you can sit in this moment with a deep level of awareness and acceptance, being like, I can be okay right now. I can feel not great right now. I can feel discomfort or pain, and I can be totally okay in that. I can accept this moment as it is, and I can love it for what it is, whether I deem it as negative or positive, because that's still just a judgment. I can love it as it is. I can accept it. And then what do I intend to do? My intention can be to have connections. So I'll pick up the phone and call someone, see how they're doing, touch base with them, and boom, all of a sudden I feel this sense of connection. I've met a need. I feel emotionally uplifted, and I've uplifted someone else, or I can, instead of eating something that's going to be detrimental to my health, I can nourish the body and fuel it and give it the protein that it needs and give it the good carbohydrates and fats that it needs to fuel it, so I have more energy, and so I can start reshaping and recompositioning the body, adding more muscle, burning fat, releasing fat instead of losing fat, like losing weight. We're averse to loss, so why would we try to lose weight? It's like release it. It's just an exchange of energy. Anyways, that's another topic. So just looking at this, awareness, acceptance, and then counteraction or inspired action in the direction that you choose. Just finding that inspiration within you, finding what do you really want? Like, what would you do if you had all the money in the world? What would you do if you had $1 billion? How would you live? Have you really thought about that? Have you really looked at like what are the things you would do? Write out your perfect day. Like what would your perfect day look like? What time would you wake up? What would you do right when you got up? How would you live your life? Who would you see? What kind of work would you do? Would you do work? I don't do work. I call it play. I don't call it, I do my best to not call it work anymore. I'm calling it play because that's what I want to live. I want to live a life of play, of fun, of excitement, of adventure. And, I'm the author of my life. I have authority, to be authentic, to author my life. So I choose to author it in a way that I want to. So I change the language that I use around the way I live my life, the way around I do my world. And so I'm being more authentic. I'm being more authoritative. I'm writing the script of my life. And so I choose to play. I choose to make this fun and easy. And so I take inspired actions in the moment. And, again, we're not perfect at this, but it's progress, not perfection. I'm a progressionist. I move forward little bits at a time, inspired action. And then the next moment arises, something shows up, whatever. Again, awareness. Okay, I feel the compulsion. I feel the need to fulfill this like hole inside of me with something. And it's like, okay, I'm going to reach for the phone. No, I'm not going to reach for the phone. I'm going to accept this moment, take a breath, pause, love this moment for what it is. And then I'm going to take an inspired action. Instead of going to the doom hole scroll, I might go for a little movement snack, go for a 5-minute walk around the block to interrupt that pattern and create a new pattern. So I hope this is useful for you. It might have been a little bit of a rant, and that's okay. I can love and accept myself for that. So, just let me know your comments. Let me know anything that you'd like for me to talk about. But I'm going to keep dropping these videos, and I hope that my intention, if I had an intention, let's say here, my intention is that you get something useful out of this that you can apply to your life that helps you to change it in the way that you choose. Not necessarily make your life better. I want you to be more intentional. I want you to be more conscious with your life, be more aware of your life, that your actions, your attitudes, your thoughts, all this impacts the world around you. And so you can harness the power of your own magnetism. You create your own reality. Everything is energy. It's way more malleable than what we believe it to be. So craft the world. Make your life an adventure. Make your life the story you choose. Be the author. Be the authority in your life. Be authentic. Love you. Peace.